نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم آمين. Uh, Normally, when we are reading Quranic ayahs, we dwell down in the meaning of the ayah, and that while we are going deeper in order to understand the meaning, we tend to get disconnected with the surrounding subjects which have been given in different ruku of the same surah, and also the subjects and the main themes of relating surahs. And this is what I'm trying to achieve here by bringing up, the relationship of this surah with other surahs, and the themes of the rukus, which is the main subjects of the rukus. Sometimes it becomes difficult to pick up one subject out of a ruku, but nevertheless, to simplify it in order to have an orientation, where are we going? It is a good exercise to do. So if you remember the relationship I mentioned of this particular surah, we are studying Surah Nahl, was the surah behind it was Surah Hijr, and the surah that's going to be after it will be Surah Isra, Surah Bani Israel. The subject of Surah Hijr, if you remember, and also this is important, to understand the context. Normally, when we explain ayahs, we do not explain the context. Context is very, very important, right? In order to understand what is happening and why it is happening. So if you see the context here in Surah Hijr, the Quraysh was alleging Muslims, and the time was the middle Meccan period. And while the surah emphasized on the power and knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, particularly in the context of uh, the the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the divine warning. So this is the theme that continues in this surah. The warnings for the warning for the Quraysh, and the power and knowledge of Allah. It goes on, and then the surah Nahl builds on that, providing further signs of Allah. And then after Surah Nahl, we will get into, uh, the Bani Israel, Surah Isra, that focuses on the night journey, which emphasizes and takes the spiritual journey to the next level. It elevates spiritual and moral, uh, you know, uh, standard, or make you call it the, elevation of spiritual and moral aspect of believers. And so this is the orientation where we stand in this particular Surah Nahl. Then also the themes which we are going through ruku by ruku of the surah. We studied the first ruku, the signs of Allah, which was continuing from the previous surah, Surah Hijr, continues here again, signs of Allah, Allah's power and the warning of Allah of accountability. So this is more emphasized and more, um, um, focused on in the first ruku. Then in the second ruku, the reflection on Allah's bounties continues, and Allah reminds people as signs for them to believe if they would like to. And I mentioned at that point that to see things which are normally not visible to human eye, we need instruments. In the world of scientific evidence collection, We use scientific tools and instruments to view, for example, microscope, to see the microscopic world, which is not visible to naked eye. And mind you, what happened when this world of microbes was not visible? So one of the microbe that causes plague, and plague broke a couple of times in Europe. Christianity understood it as the curse of Allah, as a punishment of Allah, and and they have this. And now we have archaeological finding. One of the finding in Turkey, by the way, of archaeological finding 2,500 years ago, a tomb was excavated, and they found archaeological, artifacts. And they found that a princess was sacrificed at that time because a plague was broke. Because of the plague, they didn't understand. They couldn't see the world of microbes. So what they did, they understood it the way they could understand, and they end up sacrificing the princess in order to get rid of that plague because they couldn't see the world of microbes. In the recent past, we did able to invent an instrument, microscope, to see. And similarly, but Islam, by the way, when we are talking about plague, Christianity dealt plague as a bad omen, as bad spirit, as punishment of God, and so on and so forth. But Islam didn't deal it like that. And we have that when the coronavirus, if you remember, COVID-19, when it spread, the hadith was pretty much in circulation about Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, and Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in Bukhari that do not enter the place where there is a plague. And if you're inside it, don't leave. Leave it on Allah. So this is the Islamic understanding of such epidemics were far better as compared to the previous religions. So the instrument we were talking about, that how to see. So the instrument Quran uses is these ayahs. So these are the signs to see Allah, to know Allah, which will be further emphasized in the section we will be reading today. So let me wind it up and jump to this, because when we'll be ending the surah, we're going to do again a summary of the surah, and we'll see all the subjects taken up by each ruku. So we'll see the sequence of subjects in the rukus in order to have a deeper understanding of the surah. So let me start from ayah number 71. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والله فضل بعضكم على بعض في الرزق فما الذين فضلوا براد رزقهم على ما ملكت أيمانهم فهم فيه سواء أفبنعمة الله يجحدون. You see, these ayahs, I'm going to translate these ayahs hold aqaid. A very fundamental aqidas are going to be discussed. And since I mentioned recently, if we remember, that there was a time when Mu'tazila, the thought, the school of theological thought in Islam. In Islam, the theological thought evolved. It had its journey up and down. So there was a school. After 200 years, it propped up. The school was Mu'tazila. And it started with the thought that aql has an importance. Unfortunately, the kings were not happy, and kings already working on installing a fiqh, and fiqh was Hanbaliya. And they used, Hanbaliya fiqh to eliminate Aqliya. So Hanbaliya was taking a stand on Naqliya, while that the deen comes through naql, while Aqliya was talking about that, hey, listen, Aql has a very important role. But since the kings were at the side of Hanbaliya and wanted this to be established, Naqliya, if people start thinking on their own, we're going to be in a mess. There are going to be questions, because the questions were propping up in the subject of Ilmul Kalam. What is Ilmul Kalam? Ilmul Kalam is the knowledge of the names of Allah, which is the attributes of Allah. And we see the attributes, when you study Aqidah, then you will see the attributes are coming in conflict. Though normally people don't know that and don't understand that, don't do the thinking, because over generations we've been trained not to think. And those who were the controllers of spiritual domain and political domain, they enjoyed those periods of stability when they made people in this fashion. But in a longer run, we saw that those nations who were pondering and thinking and investigating and doing research, they discovered a lot of things, and their status changed, their position changed, their position of power changed, and they became the dominant nations. Their knowledge increased to an extent that it started again fiddling up with these aqaid. Now, in order to defend that, we kept on rebutting, raising walls, and abhorring. This is the strategies we used in order to stay away from those the discoveries and the knowledge that was creeping in order to contain the aqaid we built over a period of time. But Quran, when you read Quran, it takes you right in the fundamental. And since the time has changed, now there is a possibility of Aqliya coming back again in the form of rationalism, the Islamic rationalism. That was Mu'tazila first time, but it's going to be this time. It's going to be rationalism, and people will be logically discussing the attributes of Allah, which are assigned in the Aqidah. And when this will happen, the Aqidas which they created over generations, Muslim scholars a lot of them will be thrown out of the window. And what will stand up? The Quran will resurface. Will the rust on it will go away. It will shine up. And this is what example you're going to be seeing right now in ayah number 71. Wallahu faddala ba'dakum ala ba'din fir rizq. In the provision, Allah has given some more, some less. Now, when we talk about why I'm saying the Aqidah has to do with it, because this is the Aqidah that Allah gives risk, some people more, some people less. This Aqidah was not at play in the fashion which is being played today. Youngsters, especially the field of IT, became millionaires. YouTubers just doing product reviews became millionaires. IT developers and what do you call it? The new business starters became billionaires. Youngsters, they don't know nothing about life, became in music industry. In a couple of more industries, they became multi-millionaires overnight. So we saw this thing, though it was not been practiced for years, it was dealt in a different fashion, understood in a different fashion, and there was dawam and stability, but here things are changing very rapidly. So Allah wallahu faddalu ba'dakum ala ba'din fir rizq. So this equity of distribution of wealth, which was, if you remember, a fundamental idea in socialism and communism, that gets fully rejected in this part of ayah, this one sentence of this ayah. Reject that. See how deep and beautiful this ayah is, and how it washes away the rust which we have developed over the period of time. فَمَا الَّذِينَ فُضِّلُوا بِرَادِّ رِزْقِهِمْ عَلَى مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُمْ فَهُمْ فِيهِ سَوَاءٌ. But those who were favored would not hand over their provision to those whom their right hand possesses. Which means that, now think about something. Would you give your fazila, which Allah has given you in form of rizq? So rizq has been considered as fazila. Here, the provision which is mentioned, not the rizq of knowledge. Yes, the knowledge comes under rizq, but here particularly is the malakiyat mentioned, which is the worldly rizq, worldly provisions. In that time, you have like farms, you have fields, orchids, cattle, lands. Today, maybe different tangible, intangible assets. Again, the fazila. Would you give the fazila to your servant, to your slave? No, you won't. Why would Allah do that? So what is this? This question is invoking rational thought. Think about it. Look at yourself. Would you do that? Similar, we read that they are alleging daughters for Allah. Nothing wrong in daughter. But they won't do that for themselves. Think about this faculty of rationalism has been invoked in two places. This is the same faculty. Please pay attention. This is the same faculty invoked to us when Allah was introduced to us. Don't you know who created you? No, I don't know who created me. Think. We thought, yeah, somebody created us. It can't come on its own. I mean, this is too complicated to come on its own. I mean, this is the probability and variables are mind-blowing. So it's not possible. So we don't have any evidence. So logic says that, if you don't have evidence, but this thing is very clear that there's a shadow, so must be a light coming from somewhere. So what did we do? We use our rational, we use our intellect in order to reach a conclusion, deductive or inductive, logical, rational conclusion that there has to be a creator. Same faculty has been invoked here, brothers. Same faculty. Would you give the provisions to whom your right hand possesses, your slaves? Would you give them? No, you won't. So what do you think? Well, Allah will do that? That will create a creation and make him a god like him? No, he won't. So this is what, the two very fundamental principles I just mentioned. I'm not going to spend similar time on other ayahs. I mean, some of the ayahs I pick up and, explain a bit more in order for people to understand. Obviously, it's going to take a while, gradual process for people to increase the level of comprehension, to see these ayahs, how deeper and powerful these ayahs are. Normally, we just translate and we move on. Now, the way I translated, it's recorded. You can go and see and listen again. And now I'm going to just do the translation in a conventional way. Now you can compare both and see that the conventional translation is not befitting for today's time. People intellectual level has gone far beyond. The social thought have evolved, and this is how the thought evolves, that we build on things. So we have gone far away. So these kind of approach of translations will not attract intellectuals. So here, let me read again. Now I'm going to do translation only. And Allah has favored some of you over others in provision, but those who were favored would not hand over their provision to those whom their right hand possesses. So they would be equal to them therein. Then is it the favor of Allah they reject? So if you just read the translation without understanding the depth of it, the context of it, and the adjacent subjects, so it really become bland. And once you talk about all these things, then you understand, the beauty of it. Wallahu ja'ala lakum min anfusikum azwajan wa ja'ala lakum min azwajikum banina wa hafadatan wa razaqakum min at-tayyibat. أَفَبِالْبَاطِلِ يُؤْمِنُونَ وَبِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ هُمْ يَكْفُرُونَ. Again, in the previous ayah, the rizq was mentioned, provisions was a ni'mah. Here, again, these provisions are ni'mah. These provisions are ni'mah. And this ni'mah is the blessing of Allah. And the deen ensures this ni'mah. It protects this ni'mah. It prospers this ni'mah. So, and Allah has made for you from yourselves mates, and has made for you from your mates son and grandchildren, and has provided for you from the good things. So this a beautiful creation, that our spouses are from us. It doesn't mean that they're coming from us, like as people still think that is the every man, every husband, his wife is from his, as Adam alayhi salam, from the rib. So every man's wife is made from his rib. And then they use this wallahu alam thing, that since we don't know, Allah knows, so it justifies whatever we are saying. Our wrong aqidah is going to justify by saying wallahu alam. This is a bad approach. I mean, this is not, shouldn't be the approach in Islam. Your approach should be to know the truth. This is supposed to be a Muslim's approach, the truth seeker, the truth establisher. So here, if you see, Allah has made for you from yourselves mates, which means that the same species. The women we marry are not from Mars. They're not aliens. They're not from us, right? So they didn't evolve separately. They was made when we were made, through the process of evolution. And we discussed about so many signs are there in Quran that Allah says about when summa khalaqnakum summa sawwarnakum. So this is and some other places indicates that it was been gradually made into what human beings are. So and Allah has made for you from yourselves mates, and has made for you from your mates sons and grandchildren, and has provided for you from good things. Then in falsehood do they believe, and the favors of Allah they disbelieve. Again, the same faculty is used, faculty of reasoning, rationalism is been used, Quran is using. Now I'm surprised that no wonder it was the kings that helped Hanabila to overcome Mu'tazila. If king would have favored Mu'tazila, things would have been different today, right? So let's continue. وَيَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَمْلِكُ لَهُمْ رِزْقًا مِنَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ. And they worship beside Allah that which does not possess for them power of provision from the heavens and the earth at all. And in fact, they are unable. So this is, again, using the same faculty, using the same reason and think, that you are worshipping something which is not, doesn't even exist. The names we have created, they're unable to provide you nothing. They don't have any consciousness. They even cannot provide themselves. So this is, if you see the context, the Quraysh has been in discussion, though the Quran is for all times to come, but particularly here, the Quraysh is under discussion, and the idols which is they worship is been targeted very bluntly, openly. The question is pretty open, clear, straightforward, pointing. And you know what happens? The minute somebody points finger on your aqidah, a man becomes defensive. a man becomes defensive. So, if you see, if you disconnect the context and this ayah, present this ayah to somebody who is an idol worshipper, you have lost him. And Quran did not use this method. Quran used a method of introducing Allah first. So this came after the persecution kicked in. This confrontative way of narrating facts came after the persecution of Muslims. So the people who were non-believers, who were rejecting, they were been nicely told first, given a lot of reasoning. Then the reasoning came to this level that they became a bit confrontative, and then the azab and its delivery was been informed, and then the punishment was announced, and then sarcasm was added, and then threat added. So this is how the gradual, the Ma'amla of Zajr, it evolved in this fashion. فَلَا تَضْرِبُوا لِلَّهِ الْأَمْثَالِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. So do not assert similarities to Allah. Indeed, Allah knows and you do not know. Do not assert similarities, similitude for Allah. Now, if you see similarities or similitude, is the word used is amthal. فَلَا تَضْرِبُوا لِلَّهِ الْأَمْثَالِ. Do not put examples for Allah, because he's beyond your comprehension. You cannot comprehend him. Your mind is too small to comprehend him. Since we are running out of time, so I'm going to stop here, adding something to it. A very interesting thought. Maybe some would intrigue somebody to think on these lines. When we talk about Islam is going to will go, will be, what do you call it? In the beginning, Islam was gharib. Gharib doesn't mean poor, mean that not very well known by people. And then Islam came, it became dominant. But then again, Islam will become, will lose its domination, and again will become gharib. Again, Islam will come. So this, crest and trough of Islam. First, there was a trough, then came crest, again trough. So as we say in Urdu, utar chadhav, so low tide, high tide. So before it was low, then it became high, then again low, then again it's going to become high. This, we know this, and the history repeats itself. So we know it's going to be repeated. There are different theories that talk about that how it's going to happen. One of the hadith indicates that it's going to happen as it happened in the first nation, first people, first generation, not nation, first generation of Islam, Sahaba. So at the time when it happened first by Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the same way is going to happen today. But again, what do you mean by same way? Another prophet will come? No. What do you mean by same way? So the same way is very important, that the Quran was presented in its true pure form for the context of that time. Again, when Quran will dominate, when Islam will dominate, Quran will be again produced in the same pure form as it was produced the first time. Now, this pure form is important to understand, and it obviously won't be done with the hands of those who have already indoctrinated. It's very difficult. And we saw Surah Jum'ah brings this subject on, that those people, they will not accept Islam. Who? Yahud. Because Islam is the closest to Judaism. Islam and Judaism, very close religions, very close. It comes to aqaid, worships, mode of worships, law, very close. Islam inherited almost all of the law of Judaism. So we need to understand that, when we talk about that, Put forth the similitudes of Allah. Don't give examples of Allah. Do not assert similarities to Allah or examples of Allah. Indeed, Allah knows and you do not know. So comprehending Allah and sorry, I lost the track of my thought, the part I missed. So anyway, I'm a bit tired today. No problem. Inshallah, we'll continue tomorrow. It's time. I have to go as well. So inshallah, we'll continue. The time is going to be changed in a couple of days. I think the coming Saturday to Sunday, the time will be changed 1 hour. And so we will change the time accordingly. So we'll stop at ayah number 74. Tomorrow, inshallah, we'll start at ayah number 75. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. رب اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. رب اغفر وارحم أنت خير الراحمين. رب هب لي من الصالحين. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم نور قلوبنا بالإيمان واشرح صدورنا للإسلام. اللهم أرني حقيقة كل أشياء كما هي. وصلى الله على خير خلقه محمد وآله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين.
جزاك الله خير.
جزاك الله. السلام.